I've had the good fortune of serving in the House of Representatives and the Senate, representing parts of Illinois and then the entire state for a big part of my life. I've watched these institutions, the House and the Senate, face frustrating, disappointing, challenging situations. I found that the rule of thumb is basically if reasonable people will sit down at a table and put the items on the table and say, let's see if we can find a common ground, it usually works. It could work here too. We could reopen this government by the end of the day. I believe it. It's going to be more difficult because the House of Representatives is not in session. I believe it's now been 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks, that they've been out of session. They need to be here, doing their job, helping to work to find a solution to this frustrating situation. What exactly is behind the shutdown of this federal government? Let me tell you, it's a serious issue that affects virtually every American. Do you have health insurance? I do. Most of us do. Is it expensive? Yes. Do you still need it? God, yes. Without it, it would be even worse. One automobile accident, one broken bone, one serious diagnosis, you could wipe out the savings of most American families. That's the reality. So health insurance is critical. People need it. And you know what's going to happen soon? I'm sorry to say, we're going to see a dramatic increase in health insurance premiums. There was a debate here several months ago on what the president called his big, beautiful budget. And the big, beautiful budget did many things, but in addition to some of the spending decisions, it made the decision that we were going to give a tax break to the wealthiest people in America. People like Elon Musk. His tax break, if I remember correctly, I don't have it written down here, was $230,000 a year. I would say that's a lot of money for most Americans. Mr. Musk, though, is so rich, multi-billionaire, he probably wouldn't even notice it. But the $230,000 tax break for the wealthiest Americans meant that other programs needed to be cut. And what were the programs that President Trump and the Republicans in Congress decided to cut? One was Medicaid. Medicaid is a pretty universal program that affects millions of Americans in the services that they receive from clinics, from hospitals, even living in nursing homes. Medicaid's an important part. The Republicans, in order to provide the money for tax cuts for people like Elon Musk, needed to cut $1 trillion out of Medicaid over the next 10 years. What does it mean in my state? Well, we worry. Will rural hospitals or any inner city hospitals survive if Medicaid is cut? Will the nursing home people be able to stay in the nursing homes? Those are important and critical questions. The second part of the decision by the Republicans in the big, beautiful budget to provide a tax break for the wealthy was basically to eliminate the tax subsidy that is available for middle-income families under the Affordable Care Act. What does that mean? Well, for some people, they're going to see the results in the mail in just a matter of days. The target date in Illinois, which I represent, is October 27th. Watch for the mail then, because on October 27th, you'll receive a notice about what's going to happen to your health insurance premiums January 1st. They're going to go up an average of 114%. So take a look at what you're now paying for health insurance and anticipate that it's going to go up. How much, I'm not sure, but it could easily double. For a lot of families that are struggling to survive, that's going to become a difficult challenge. How are we going to pay this premium? These are the same families that come back from the grocery store every Saturday and Sunday and say, I can't believe what's happened to the price of beef. I can't believe what's happened to the price of produce. I mean, across the board, people see the cost of living going up, and now, in an essential service, health insurance premiums, we're going to see this dramatic increase. It's this increase that's going to affect millions of Americans, over 20 million Americans, that is the heart of this decision about whether this government is going to reopen. We have said to the Republicans, we believe that American families need a helping hand and need it now, not something to talk about later, but now. so that we can do something to stop these premiums from going up dramatically. You know what's going to happen. When the premiums go up, some families will say, no problem, making plenty of money, hate it, but we can pay it. Other families are going to say, how in the world are we going to do this? We're going to have to get a health insurance policy which has more co-pays and deductibles that are paid for us for virtually everything. So we're going to pay through the course of the next year for this increase in premiums anyway. And some will walk away, say, I just can't afford it. Can't make ends meet, can't pay utility bills, electric bills that are going up, and other things that we face, and this health insurance premium too. We're just going to have to drop the insurance and hope for the best. Well, I'm sorry for those people, because it not only means that they're facing risks in life without the protection of health insurance. We know statistically that when you don't have health insurance or any basic health insurance, that you forego treatment and examinations. And that's not good, and it's not healthy, and it doesn't lead to a good result. So is that an important issue for your family? I'll bet it is. It's an important issue for every single family. And that's what is at the heart of this government shutdown. The need for the Republicans and Democrats to sit at a table and say, how can we spare American families from this hospitalization increase that they're going to face inevitably, millions are going to face, with bad consequences. Can we do it? Of course we can. People of goodwill can reach a conclusion that they're going to find a way to compromise and see this issue come to an end. We need to do it now. Not next week, not the week following, but now. There's too much hardship that's going on with this government shutdown, and it should not continue. So my appeal is to the President, delay your trip overseas. My appeal to the Republicans in the House is come back home, come back down, I shouldn't say home, come back to Washington, leave your home, come back to Washington and go to work with us on a bipartisan basis. Is that what America wants? You bet it is. To address this issue of health insurance premiums, do it on a bipartisan basis and end this government shutdown. We can do it today. There's a lot of furniture in this Capitol. I've seen it over the years, and there are a lot of tables. There are many tables big enough for the leaders in Congress and the President to sit down and reach an agreement. That sit down ought to happen sooner rather than later. Mr. President, on another issue unrelated.
During remarks on the Senate floor Thursday, Senator Dick Durbin, Democrat, Illinois, delivered a forceful and emotional appeal urging House Republicans to end their weeks-long recess and return to Washington to negotiate a bipartisan resolution to the ongoing government shutdown. His speech carried a tone of frustration mixed with urgency, reflecting the exhaustion felt across the political spectrum over the deepening stalemate. Durbin began by acknowledging the palpable anger and discontent resonating in the chamber, emphasizing that the gridlock had become intolerable for lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. Drawing on his decades of service in both the House and the Senate, he recalled that progress in difficult times has always come when reasonable people sit down at a table and work through their differences. He insisted that if such a meeting were to happen today, we could reopen this government by the end of the day. The senator sharply criticized the House of Representatives for being out of session for nearly a month, while millions of Americans were feeling the strain of the shutdown. He argued that representatives should be in Washington doing their job rather than remaining absent during a national crisis. Durbin's message was clear. The dysfunction in Congress is not merely procedural. It is actively harming American families. Transitioning to the heart of his argument, Durbin identified the health insurance crisis as the central issue underlying the shutdown debate. He described health care as a critical necessity, not a luxury, pointing out that a single accident or diagnosis can financially devastate an uninsured family. He warned that Americans are about to face a dramatic surge in health insurance premiums, citing data that premiums in Illinois are projected to increase by an average of 114% beginning January 1st. Notices about the hike, he said, will begin arriving as early as October 27th. Durbin traced these premium increases back to what he described as President Trump's big, beautiful budget, a plan that in his view prioritizes tax cuts for the wealthy over the well-being of ordinary Americans. He singled out Elon Musk as an example, noting that the billionaire's annual tax cut on the plan would be roughly $230,000, a sum that would go virtually unnoticed by someone with wealth, but represents a year's salary or more for many American families. To offset these tax cuts, Durbin explained, the administration and its Republican allies proposed slashing $1 trillion from Medicaid over 10 years. He warned that such cuts would have devastating consequences for rural and inner-city hospitals, nursing homes, and millions of low-income Americans who depend on Medicaid for basic medical care. Will rural hospitals survive? Will nursing home residents be able to stay? He asked rhetorically, underscoring the human cost of such fiscal choices. He went on to criticize the budget's plan to eliminate tax subsidies for middle-income families under the Affordable Care Act, a move that he said would directly contribute to the skyrocketing premiums Americans will soon face. For many families already grappling with rising costs of groceries, electricity, and everyday necessities, Durbin said this increase would be unbearable. Some will be forced to choose between paying for health insurance or keeping up with basic household expenses. Others, he warned, will walk away from coverage altogether, exposing themselves to catastrophic financial and medical risks. Durbin emphasized that the real-world consequences extend far beyond dollars and cents. When people lose coverage, he said, they tend to skip routine exams and delay medical treatment, leading to worse health outcomes and greater suffering in the long run. The senator framed this not just as an economic issue, but as a moral one, a test of whether lawmakers are willing to protect the most vulnerable in society. He then called for immediate bipartisan action, rejecting any suggestion that the issue could wait. Not next week, not the week after, now, he implored. The hardship caused by the shutdown, he argued, is already too great and cannot be justified by partisan posturing. He appealed directly to President Trump to delay his upcoming overseas trip and instead focus on domestic priorities. Likewise, he urged House Republicans to come back to Washington and engage in serious negotiations with Democrats to reopen the government and shield families from devastating health cost increases. Durbin concluded with a metaphor that encapsulated his central message. There is no shortage of tables in the Capitol large enough for leaders to sit down and find common ground. The challenge, he suggested, is not the lack of space or opportunity. It is the lack of will. His speech served as both a plea and a reprimand, calling for responsibility, empathy, and leadership in a moment of national strain.